Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Dire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, Pandavas retire timely, text number 27 onwards. देश कालार्थ युक्तानि हृदतापोक्षमानि च हरन्ति स्मृतश्चित्तं गोविन्दाभिहितानि मे. So Arjuna is further saying, now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. Herein Arjun refers to the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, which was imparted to him by the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The Lord left behind him the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, not for the benefit of Arjun alone, but also for all time and in all lands. The Bhagavad Gita, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom. It's nicely presented by the Lord Himself for all who have very little time to go through the vast Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, Vedanta Sutras, etc. It's put within the study of the great historical epic Mahabharata, which was especially prepared for the less intelligent class, namely the women, the laborers, and those who are worthless descendants of the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and higher sections of the Vaishyas. The problem which arose in the heart of Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was solved by the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Again, after the departure of the Lord from the vision of earthly people, when Arjuna was face to face with being vanquished in his acquired power and prominence, he wanted again to remember the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, just to teach all concerned that the Bhagavad Gita can be consulted in all critical times, not only for solace from all kinds of mental agonies, but also for the way out of great entanglements which may embarrass one in some critical hour. So this is Prabhupada is glorifying Bhagavad Gita, that Arjun is remembering that when he was in completely dejected state, Arjun is remembering the instructions that Krishna gave him at the time of when he was dejected, the war of Mahabharata, and he came out of that and he fought the war. And now again he is thinking, I'm again in the same situation. Let me think of those instructions that Krishna gave me. The merciful Lord left behind him the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita so that one can take the instructions of the Lord even when he is not visible to material eyesight. Material senses cannot have any estimation of the Supreme Lord, but by his inconceivable power, the Lord can incarnate himself to the sense perception of the conditioned souls in a suitable manner through the agency of matter, which is also another form of the Lord's manifested energy. Thus, the Bhagavad Gita, or any authentic scriptural sound representation of the Lord, is also the incarnation of the Lord. There is no difference between the sound representation of the Lord and the Lord Himself. One can derive the same benefit from the Bhagavad Gita as Arjuna did in his personal presence of the Lord. So Prabhupada is saying same benefit can be derived by studying Bhagavad Gita, because these are the words that came from Krishna's mouth, so they're non-different from Krishna. So as long as we are studying Bhagavad Gita properly and coming from, the words are the same, the shlokas are the same, but we have to have the commentary to understand the shlokas. Otherwise, it won't make any sense to us. So the commentary has to be bona fide. But there is no difference. So just like sometimes we just chant the shlokas of Bhagavad Gita, so that's also very powerful. That will also cleanse the heart. but better to understand Bhagavad Gita through proper commentary. The faithful human being who is desirous of being liberated from the clutches of material existence can very easily take advantage of the Bhagavad Gita. And with this in view, the Lord instructed Arjun as if Arjun were in need of it. Hare Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, five important factors of knowledge have been delineated pertaining to the Supreme Lord, the living being, the nature, the time and space, and the process of activity. Means Ishwar, Jeev, Prakriti, Kal, and Karma. So these are the five topics of Bhagavad Gita. Out of these, the Supreme Lord and the living being are qualitatively one. The difference between the two has been analyzed as the difference between the whole and the part and parcel. Nature is inert matter displaying the interaction of three different modes, and eternal time and unlimited space are considered to be beyond the existence of the material nature. Activities of the living being are different varieties of aptitudes which can entrap or liberate the living being within and without the material nature. All these subject matters are concisely discussed in the Bhagavad Gita, and later the subject matters are elaborated in the Srimad Bhagavatam for further enlightenment. Out of the five subjects, the Supreme Lord, the living entity, the nature, and time and space are eternal. But the living entity, nature, and time are under the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is absolute and completely independent of any other control. The Supreme Lord is a supreme controller. The material activity of the living being is beginningless, but it can be rectified by transferal into the spiritual quality. So different um, qualities of all the five subject matters of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada is discussing. Both the living being under the condition of material nature called Mahatattva misidentifies himself but the living being as being different from the Lord. The whole scheme of Vedic wisdom is targeted to aim of eradicating such a misconception and thus liberating the living being from the illusion of material identification. When such an illusion is eradicated by knowledge and renunciation, the living beings are responsible actors and enjoyers also. The sense of enjoyment in the Lord is real, but such a sense in the living being is a sort of wishful desire only. This difference in consciousness is a distinction of the two identities, namely the Lord and the living being. Otherwise, there is no difference between the Lord and the living being. Means the both are spiritual, but the consciousness is different. Consciousness of the living being, jivas like us, when we are in the material world, our consciousness like I'm the enjoyer, I'm the controller. But those who are in the spiritual world, those who are eternally liberated, they always understand Krishna is a controller, Krishna is an enjoyer, and we are here to please Krishna. Of course, in the process, the living being enjoys more than the Supreme Lord Himself. That's a different uh, idea altogether, or different fact altogether. Here, when we are serving somebody, we are like slaves. But in the spiritual world, when we are serving Krishna, we are serving out of love and out of our own uh, independence. But that service, the essence of everything is happiness. The service in the spiritual world gives the jivas more happiness, or gives the servants the more happiness than the person who's getting served. That's something we cannot see in the material world. Like we all go for job and this and that, businesses and jobs. How many people really want to go for a job? Because when they go to job, they hate their boss. They're not serving him out of love. They are serving him out of compulsion because I need money. Otherwise, who cares for the boss? But spiritual world is different. There everybody serves out of love. Krishna also takes up the service out of love. Krishna is always in the spiritual world. So he took up the service of driving the chariot of Arjun out of love, nothing else. And the living being, a jiva, a servant there in the spiritual world, when he's serving Krishna, he enjoys more. That's why we are, for the last 2 days, we're discussing the topic of Srimati Radharani. Krishna himself cannot understand the happiness she receives when happiness she achieves or attains, when she serves him, when she is in love with him. Krishna thinks, how come she is more happy than I am? I am being served, I should be happy, but she is more happy than I am. So to understand that, Krishna came as a devotee, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But a devotee never wants to become Supreme Lord. Krishna, the Supreme Lord, wants to become a devotee. But so devotees say, I'm not going to become the Supreme Lord. You remain as a Supreme Lord. Of course, in the material world, we try unsuccessfully, or like Prabhupada said, it's a wishful thinking. We try to be the controllers. We try to be the Supreme Lord. According to our conception of Supreme Lord, we try to be, but we cannot be. We are always under the clutches of Maya. Always. Maya lets us play around and we think we are not in control of Maya. We have become God himself. We have become so powerful, so perfect that everything is in my control. Nothing is in our control. Of course, that doesn't mean we don't do our activities. That doesn't mean that. But understanding, with the right understanding, we do our activities. Ultimate controller, enjoyer, proprietor is Krishna, not us. We never were, we are not, and we will never be controllers. Only Krishna is his controller. But this misconception, and these are all cleared up in Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada further writes, see, Prabhupada, whenever there are verses of some philosophy, Prabhupada writes big purpose on that. Towards the end, I'm just going to skip this long paragraph. The Bhagavad Gita begins with the problems of life by discriminating the soul from the elements of matter, and proves by all reason and argument that the soul is indestructible in all circumstances, and the outer covering of matter, the body and the mind, change for another term of material existence, which is full of miseries. The Bhagavad Gita is therefore meant for terminating all different types of miseries. And Arjun took shelter of this great knowledge which had been imparted to him during the Kurukshetra battle. Means this is an indirect hint for us, indirect or direct, that anytime anything bothers us, we should take shelter of Bhagavad Gita. We should open it up. Any page you open up, start reading, Krishna will provide the answer. Anytime we have anything troubling us, that's Bhagavad Gita. Because it's a word of Krishna, so it's not different from Krishna. Text 28. Sutuvacha evam chintayato jishno Krishna pad saroruham soharde nati gadena shanta sid vimala matihi. Sut Goswami said, thus being deeply absorbed in thinking of the instructions of the Lord, which were imparted in the great intimacy of friendship, and in thinking of his lotus feet, Arjuna's mind became pacified and free from all material contamination. So ultimately, those instructions of Krishna, which were in the form of Bhagavad Gita, they only gave him some solace. Since the Lord is absolute, deep meditation upon him is as good as yogic trance. The Lord is non-different from his name, form, quality, pastimes, entourage, and specific actions. Arjun began to think of the Lord's instructions to him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Only those instructions began to eliminate the tinges of material contamination in the mind of Arjuna. The Lord is like the sun. The sun's appearance means immediate dissipation of the darkness or ignorance. And the Lord's appearance within the mind of the devotee can at once drive away the miserable material effects. So, the Lord's appearance within the mind of the devotee can at once drive away the miserable material effects. So, right now, why we suffer? Because we have forgotten Krishna. That's in one of the bhajans one Acharya has written. Krishna bhuliya jeev bhog vancha kare, nikatastha maya tare, jhapatiya dhare. Means forgetting Krishna, a jiva, a living entity, is desiring bhogvancha, is desiring to enjoy in this material world. And what does Maya do? Nikatastha. Maya is very near, very close to the jiva. Nikatastha Maya tare. Maya, what does she do? Jhapatiya dhare. Means she's slapping him left and right. Because he has forgotten Krishna and is thinking of material sense gratification. So this is what happened when Prabhupada is writing, the Lord is like the sun, and the sun's appearance means immediate dissipation of darkness or ignorance. And the Lord's appearance within the mind of the devotee can at once drive away the miserable material effects. So because we have forgotten Krishna, that's where we are in the misery. As soon as we remember Krishna, all the miseries go away. But our problem is we remember Krishna and then we forget Krishna. Remember, we forget. We remember, we forget. Most of the times we forget, of course. Sometimes we remember, and that time, of course, that time Maya cannot touch us, but that remembrance does not last too long. Lord Chaitanya has therefore recommended constant chanting of the name of the Lord for protection from all contamination of the material world. The feeling of separation from the Lord is undoubtedly painful to the devotee. But because it's in connection with the Lord, it has a specific transcendental effect which pacifies the heart. Feelings of separation are also sources of transcendental bliss, and they are never comparable to contaminated material feelings of separation. So, anything connected with Krishna, whether it's the feeling of separation, and even in the feeling of separation, a devotee is thinking of Krishna, and that gives him ultimate transcendental bliss. So inside he's blissful because he is thinking of Krishna, and thinking of Krishna is as good as being with Krishna. So feelings of separation are also sources of transcendental bliss, and they are never comparable to contaminated material feelings of separation. So materially, and also sometimes we get separated from our near and dear ones. But that feeling of separation gives us misery, makes us miserable. But the feelings of separation of Krishna from Krishna, that gives us lots of happiness. Of course, outwardly we are miserable that, oh, why I am away from Krishna, why Krishna is not with me. But inwardly, inside, the devotee is in complete satisfaction, complete happiness, because Krishna is with him in the form of thought. Radharani, all the gopis, Sakhas, Yashodamaya, Nanda Baba, when Krishna left for Mathura and then later on to Dwarka, they were in complete separation from him for 100 years actually. But even in that separation, when they were thinking about him, yes, outwardly they were miserable, but inside they were satisfied that Krishna is here, he is with us. So this mood of separation. Actually, that is the special gift of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he has given to his followers. No other Acharya has given before. Gaur Govind Maharaj gave wonderful series of lectures on union in separation. So then he, of course, he is a highly advanced scholar and Vaishnava. So he has examined everything and then he has given his realizations. So this separation, actually it gives the ultimate bliss. So that separation, mood of separation, is only given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And no other Vaishnava sect actually even talks about it, except Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Vasudevangre Vasudevangre Anudhyana Paribramhit Ranjhasa Bhaktya Nirmathita Shesha Kashaya Deshno Arjuna. Arjuna's constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna rapidly increased his devotion, and as a result, all the trash in his thoughts subsided. Material desires in the mind are the trash of material contamination. By such contamination, the living being is faced with so many compatible and incompatible things that discourage the very existence of spiritual identity. Birth after birth, the conditioned soul is entrapped with so many pleasing and displeasing elements, which are all false and temporary. Of course, when we are suffering, we feel it, or it just feels like that. Oh, this suffering will never end. Happiness does not feel like that, but suffering is always like that. But it's all temporary. It's all false and temporary, with any pleasing and displeasing elements. They accumulate due to our reactions to material desires. But when we get in touch with the transcendental Lord, in his variegated energies by devotional service, the naked forms of all material desires become manifest, and the intelligence of the living being is pacified in its true color. As soon as Arjun turned his attention towards the instructions of the Lord, as they are inculcated in the Bhagavad Gita, his true color of eternal association with the Lord became manifest, and thus he felt freed from all material contaminations. So this is what we have to do. Whenever we are in misery, whenever we have anything, any problematic situation, of course we can take shelter of. Best thing is to take shelter of the holy names of Krishna. Because remembering Bhagavad Gita, the teachings of Bhagavad Gita may not be conducive at that time. So best thing is to chant the holy names. But if we cannot, then we try to remember the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. So by chanting of the holy names, it puts us in direct contact with the Supreme Lord and His Supreme Energy, Srimati Radharani. So when they are there, then no troubles can remain over there. Text 30. Geetam Bhagavata Jnanam Yattat Sangramurdhani Kal Karmatam Ruddham Punar Adhya Gamat Prabhu. Because of the Lord's pastimes and activities and because of his absence, it appeared that Arjun forgot the instructions left by the personality of Godhead. But factually, this was not the case. And again, he became Lord of his senses, means his senses came back under his control. A conditioned soul is entrapped in his fruitive activities by the force of eternal time. But the Supreme Lord, when he incarnates on the earth, is not influenced by Kal or the material conception of past, present, and future. The activities of the Lord are eternal and they are manifestations of his Atmaya or internal potency. All pastimes or activities of the Lord are spiritual in nature, but to the layman they appear to be on the same level with material activities. It so appeared that Arjun and the Lord were engaged in the battle of Kurukshetra as the other party was also engaged. But factually, the Lord was executing his mission and mission of incarnation and association with his eternal friend Arjun. Therefore, such apparently material activities of Arjuna did not drive him away from his transcendental position, but on the contrary, revived his consciousness of the songs of the Lord as he sang them personally. So, the revival of consciousness is assured by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita as follows. One should think of the Lord always. The mind should not forget him. One should become a devotee of the Lord and offer obeisances unto him. One who lives in that fashion becomes undoubtedly endowed with the blessings of the Lord by achieving the shelter of his lotus feet. There is nothing to doubt about his eternal truth. Because Arjun was his confidential friend, the secret was disclosed to him. Arjun had no desire to fight with his relatives, but he fought for the mission of the Lord. He was always engaged in his execution of his mission only, and therefore, after the Lord's departure, he remained in the same transcendental position, even though it appeared that he forgot all the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita. One should therefore adjust the activities of life in pace with the mission of the Lord, and by doing this, one is sure to return back to God. That is the highest perfection of life. So Arjun again remembered the teachings of Krishna that he gave during his talk of Bhagavad Gita, and he again became composed and contained. And then he remembered his mission. He was always engaged in the execution of his mission only. So that is a way of proper living. So we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. Subbu Prabhu, would you like to comment? Say something?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
No, it's all very clear.
Please tell us more about Naimisharanya trip.
Oh, it's amazing trip. Actually, we missed you a lot during our bus
Me?
journeys, and the way you engaged everybody in Shukratal trip. Of course, that was my first trip with you. Hope it's not the last trip. so,
I hope not
to
either.
have you. Yeah, so it was great fun, as well as very, mind was almost all day away from mundane matters. So it was there to experience, not simply from sightseeing perspective, but from being there where everything started, and where the whole place is teeming with the mantras and the Puranas, the Kathas, the Maharishis there. I mean, it's amazing. Of course, we would have liked to go to the Balaji temple also, which I later found out is one of the 108 Divya Desham of Vaishnava Sampradayam. It is a Swayambhu temple, which we missed, obviously, but it was beautiful, especially the Vyas Gaddi place and the Sutta Gaddi. It's amazing. But yeah, we missed you at least. It would have been great to have you there. So maybe sometime in the future.
Definitely.
But on a slightly mundane note, the word Prabhu here mentions as a lot of his senses. So is it that bhav that we call each other Prabhus?
No. He became Prabhupada is writing. He became Lord of his senses. Means his senses were out of control. He was completely dejected when he came back from Dwarka. So then he remembered the instructions. So he got his senses complete in control again. When we address each other as Prabhu, that means that you are my master and I am your servant. The mood should be that. Means we should adopt this mood of servant of servant of servant of servant. Then we are in the okay position. But our somehow that word Prabhu has become just a matter of address, not a matter of coming from the heart. So that way we are misusing the word Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Any other question or comment? So I guess we can stop here. So you all have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shila Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.